yes, give us a short introduction of yourself.
My name is Michael Wolf. I've been a video game advocate probably by early 90s is when I first started. I'll tell you that the game that made me want to buy a computer back in 1993, Disney Coaster. All you remember back that far is an old DOS game. Super, I thought was absolutely incredible because you could build your own roller coaster and then actually ride it in first person. And I was really, I've got to get a computer. I have to get one to play this game. There were games before that, like on Commodore 64, going all the way back to like even the early 80s. I remember seeing, going way back, Choplifter. I don't even think you were born yet. Seeing the dot matrix graphics and thinking that is incredible graphics. Look at that. You can actually see the guys running. It was just stick figures, That's really when I got my like, this is something that's really cool. I've always been interested in technology, always been interested in video games, stuff like that. But the game that really pushed me over was Disney Coaster. And then that was just a few years, actually. Let's see. No, that was after I met. What brought me into the video game business, shout outs to Tim Lang. You've interviewed him before, a video game designer for a lot of years. I've known him. We met in junior high school back in 1986. So we've known each other a little bit. We met in band. He played the bass clarinet. I played percussion. He sat in the back row. And basically how we met was through a movie, Canadian movie, Strange Brew, Bob and Doug McKenzie. Don't know if you've seen it or not. If you want to see a classic 80s movie, you've got to see Strange Brew. It's one of the best movies. Better than Lord of the Rings. So yeah, he and I just kind of, how's it going, eh? And the friendship was just born, and we've been friends ever since. We've been in a lot of bands together. I used to go over to his house. I would watch him play Wasteland on his Commodore 64. Wasteland, Bard's Tale, all these other Commodore adventure type games. He'd bring his Commodore over to my house, sleepovers. We'd play till 4 a.m. I mean, it was just really, I got to give Tim most of the credit for really introducing me to what video games really are. So that's kind of where I come from. I mean, there was a point where I was working in the video game industry 12 hours a day, coming home and playing video games for 6 more hours. Just crazy infatuation with video games, no matter what it was, Half-Life, Doom, all these classics, you know what I mean? So it's been an escape, a real passion of mine, just to get in there, get lost in the world, play the game. And it really just kind of refreshes everything. You've had a rough day, you jump in a game, you play it for a while. So.
Yeah, I think a lot of people can relate to that.
Exactly. I've tried tabletop games. I've tried card games. It's just not the same. It's just not. Sure, you get the interactivity with other human beings playing card games or like Dungeons and Dragons type tabletop games. And it's cool for the social aspect. But when you get really deeply into your character, the storyline, what you're doing, your quests and all that stuff, you're in there.
Yeah.
And then you clock, it's 4. I got to work at 7. That's it. One more turn.
Yeah. Oh, yes, I recognize that feeling as well. It's like, especially when I was like a lot younger, I used to, like when I knew that I had to get off the computer, it was when my mom was waking up for work. And it was like, oh, crap, I got to get to bed.
Yeah, exactly. I've been there like, oh, sun's coming up.
Huh. Yeah. Not again.
But yeah, I mean, that's kind of where I come from. I mean, I'll be honest with you, I still love video games. I still go back to the classics and even some newer games. I don't play games nearly as much as I did, just because, you've got your responsibilities, job,
all that fun stuff, yes.
And all that, So, but every once in a while, I like to I'm going to go in my room, I'm going to jump on my computer and just get in there. You know what I mean? It's a lot of fun. Right now I'm playing Far Cry 5 and Fallout 4. Are the two.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, so you did like go on to the newer games. And I know a lot of people that like the older games and like the retro style games. They are kind of stuck in the past, so to speak. But I guess you're not one of them.
I do both, actually. I'll go back to Warcraft 2. I'll go back to StarCraft. I'll go back to Doom. I mean, it's just what you want to play. I buy the games when they're on Steam. You get them for $1. For $2, grab it, man. you know. And so I've got a heck of a lot of games. I kind of go over the spectrum. You know what I mean? It's a good time. So.
That's great. So you mentioned that Tim Lang got you into
Yes.
the industry. So what was the first game that you worked on?
Okay. This is in Southern California. He worked at New World Computing in 3DO. And I was working as a janitor at some manufacturing place. And now, at that point, Tim and I had known each other for quite a while. He said, dude, we're hiring over here. I know you want to get into computers. I know you want to get into the game business. I think this is a good opportunity for you. So I went and interviewed and got the job as a QA tester for Heroes of Might and Magic 2 Gold, the last edition of the Heroes 2 series. Knew nothing about the game. I'd never played a role-playing, turn-based role-playing game, ever. So I'm testing it. I guess I'll just learn as I go. They were working on the tail end of Might and Magic 6 and starting Might and Magic 7. So I got to see that as well. I tested the demos for Might and Magic 7. The demo consisted of the entry world where you do the treasure hunt. You got to pick up 7 or 8 things and bring it back to this, whoever it is, wizard or something. And it kind of gave you a good feel. So we tested that and then jumped into testing the Heroes of Might and Magic 2 Gold. Just making sure everything was good. The game was already made, so we didn't really design anything, but just making sure the game was balanced and good and all the new exclusive stuff that had been added for the Gold Edition had worked. And that kind of got my feet wet. I'll be honest with you, I hated Heroes of Might and Magic 2. And, all of us in this big testing room with all the other testers and stuff, and we're all playing and testing and things like that. This game sucks, man. Because I was losing. I'm like, I had no idea what I was doing, and I was getting angrier and angrier. It's like you approach a 5,000 dragons. I'm like, I just started. There's no way I'm going to beat. And I just kept losing. I'm like, this game. Who likes this game? It's a good getting paid to play this because this is garbage. I hate this. And and I just kept playing because you got to learn how to play the game and the balancing and things like that. I didn't know how the game worked at all. And the thing that clicked for me, though, I went home that day, like, you know what? Look what that game did to me. Pissed me off so much. This is the greatest game of all time because I am so involved. I'm like, I went back in the next day, like, this game's incredible. Look at this and look at that. And this is how the point system works. And look at these creatures. And I got to take this guy and level him up to go. I just like, it took that anger and that frustration, just like, oh, all right, this game's awesome. So I went out and tested that. And then that game was released. And then we started the Angels Are Singing right now, Heroes of Might and Magic 3 as a level designer. And I was, honestly, I'm like, all of us knew, I think, this is a big game. When you're on a development team and I've been on the development team for several games, so we can get into that in a few minutes, but just, when the game, this is going to be a good one. This one's going to be really good. And everyone on the entire team loved what they were doing. The artists, the programmers, the designers, the story writer, everybody just like, this is a good game. This is going to be, So I was chosen to be on the level design team for Heroes of Might and Magic 3. And it was, I went in not having read any fantasy novels, had never read Lord of the Rings, had never even dipped my toe in the fantasy genre. It's like, how am I going to make levels and stories for a genre I know nothing about? So you know what? And I went in and I started reading up on some lore and some, Cliff Notes version of Lord of the Rings and just other fantasy type stories, just to kind of get an idea of what I was doing, asking questions of the other guys who are like D&D nerds, like, oof, even the D&D nerds are like, whoa, stay away from that guy. But they helped me a lot because, all right, well, what's this dragon? Tell me the story about this imp. What are imps? What are these? What are troglodytes? What is, and they just encyclopedia of information, just listen, like, oh my gosh, these guys are incredible. But I was able to get enough knowledge to, put together a map, and make it look nice, of course, but develop a story, an actual playability and a style and a kind of a, just to balance with the story, the map, playability, game balance with creatures and other players. And, each map that we designed on average took 30 to 40 hours to get it completely balanced. A lot of time. We were on the Heroes 3 development cycle. It was almost 2.5 years. A lot of hours. But when you're balancing a game to that point, to that degree, these maps are basically as good as they can be. You know what I mean? Lots of hours of testing. Okay, now this dragon killed me because I only have 2 imps and there's 1,500 black dragons. Okay, gotta fix it. But just the balance was key, and then also making sure your story lined up with what was happening in the actual game. Just a lot of stuff you have to juggle to make sure that it's all good. And I since I didn't know that much about the fantasy world, I put in modern, like today, little comedy bits, just funny little stuff from today in the fantasy world. And it worked out really well, actually. So one of the lines that got me a lead level designer on one of the following expansions, I got to make the secret campaign in the Armageddon's Blade. So the Armageddon's Blade was the second expansion, not the third. But there was a hidden campaign that was designed on comedy and just over the top humor and things like that. I got to write all the little one-liner jokes, and it's a 4-map campaign. And the line that got me it was Sandro was trying to take over a castle, and you sent a letter to him saying that you're going to chop his head off and kill him, and his guards are just standing there staring at you, blinking. And then you continue on to the game, just something silly like that. And just a lot of just lighthearted situational comedy stuff. I just threw it in everywhere, and it worked out really well. I go back and read the comments and what people have said about maps, the single player maps that, all of my buddies made, David and Mark and all these other guys. And they said, these maps are very easy, but hilarious. And it worked out well. It really did. So, so that's how much I got into it.
Yeah. It's kind of funny, though, that you say, like, you put in around 30 to 40 hours of just balancing the maps. But, I've been doing a lot of maps myself. And, 30 to 40 hours would be fast for me.
Right.
Yeah.
Well, and the thing when you're doing it as a job, and that's your job. That's all you're doing. 8 hours a day, 12 hours a day, depending on what, you actually get a lot done. You know what I mean? You design the map. Like when I design a map, if we can go into that real quick, what I would typically do, I'll use the random map generator and just create a terrain. That terrain looks cool. Or, let's just try it again, and get a terrain. Okay, you've got the island over here. You've got an island over here, and you got a lot of snow, just stuff like that. And okay, that's good. And then I erase everything. So I just have the terrain only. Because when you do a random map, it's an obvious, you get stuff that doesn't even need to belong there. So I just build my own, or I'll modify trees and landscape and things like that. But I basically take the terrain and build from that. So before the random map generator was created, we had to go completely from scratch, which was not that big a deal, but just starting with the normal terrain actually saved a lot of time. So then from then I would put in the landscape and then place my towns. And then go from there. Basically, just where am I going with this map? Okay, you got this. You got the Inferno town here. You've got a castle down here, and you've got this town over here. Why are they there? Why are they even in here? Why is this a 5-player map? What's the point of every single town? What's the point of this guy? He's going to come up here, and you've got to plan it all completely. So, basic storyline. What's the purpose of every player? What's the end goal of the game? You have to write all of that down. Okay, and I made it a point for something to happen to the player in every turn. You're capturing a gem mine, a gold mine, something. You're fighting somebody. You're having some kind of interaction with the game at every single turn. I've played some maps where you're like, walk, 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 walk. Nothing happens. Walk, 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 walk. Nothing happens. Like, okay. You got to have something. And every single adventure item, a castle, an artifact, anything has to be there for a reason, not just because. I did my best to make everything have a purpose so that it was as enjoyable as possible for the player.
Yeah.
So
did you have what?
Oh, that's a very scattered answer, but
oh yeah. That's okay. So since you worked on the actual game, did you have any other tools, or did you have the exact same map editor that we the map makers have now?
Oh yeah, fair question. It was actually the exact same. Now you have the advantage, because you use the finished product as where we were working on the beta product. So it wasn't developed yet, and yet here we are having to make maps with something that isn't finished. So there were times I remember in the very early stages, we make the map, just a basic map to test, you just a green square, okay, and then you put all your heroes on there, and you're testing each individual skill or spell. Okay, this one at level 1 gives me this much distance. Very tedious. So you give them that spell, you test it. You give them that spell at level 2, you test it, it goes a little further, and on and on and on. It's like, oh man, just painful, but extremely necessary. You got to do it. Will this in fact give him this much more vision, or this much more powerful of a lightning strike? And we had to go through very tediously every single spell, every single skill, and make sure it did what it was supposed to do. And all the while, this isn't beta. It's crashing all the time. And I remember, setting up a map, putting in a tavern, putting in a little town, putting in a gem mine. You touch the gem mine, oh, it just crashed. You touch the castle, it crashed again. And it's 98, where it was good practice. You have to restart your computer every time. Oh, just hold on, I'm rebooting. It's a good thing there was a good size of level designers and testers, because that was the hardest part, is getting the technical side and making sure everything worked the way it was supposed to work. Once we got past everything crashing and touching an adventure item crashes the whole game. That was one of our bugs, one of the first ones. Got past that, or you'd be into the game several versions later. You got to start over, because this update's going to just erase all your saves and destroy your character. Like, come on, really? And it's just the part of the gaming, the part of the software development cycle. You just got to expect this. You know what I mean? So, and like I said, the end users have a much better advantage, because you have a finished, polished, complete product. It's not going to crash. It's not going to randomly do something like, where did that even come? So yeah, we use the same tools as in the end version.
Wow. So what would you say your average time per map would be in total, not only the balancing and all that, but from scratch to a fully finished map? How many hours or days? Or
are you talking a campaign of several maps, or just a single map?
Well, for a single map.
Single map, like I said, typically a big part of it too is depending on the size of your map.
Yeah.
If you've got an extra large map, which was all it was available back then, that's huge. you're dropping a solid week on an extra large map. A tiny map, maybe 1 or 2 layers, you probably pound it out in maybe 2 days because it's just not that much to work with. You know what I mean? I always did 2-layer small maps, and Twins is one of them, by the way. Play Twins when it's hard. It's really difficult, but it's a small map. But yeah, it really depends on how much detail you want to put into it. What kind of story? That's also a big deal. You're actually writing a story along with designing a map. Some single player maps was like capture the castle and win the game. Well, that's easy. You know what I mean? That's easy. Drop in an occasional random event. Oh, this happened. You just lost all your gold, or you gained all your gold, or something like that. Those pretty simple. You focus mainly on just the game itself, the actual monster versus player balance and all that stuff. In some maps, you put a lot of time into the story to complement the map, and that's actually kind of what I like doing a lot better is building a kind of a solid story and a purpose around each map that I build.
Yeah. Yeah, that's really, really interesting, because as I said, I've been making a lot of maps and campaigns as well, but I've been doing that for I think it's 12 years now, and we have 3 finished campaigns on during that time, just because it's a lot of testing, and it's hard to get people to test your product when you're not a real company or anything like that.
Exactly. It's like I'm working on one now. I've off and on touched level design for ever since the game came out.
Yeah.
After the game was released, we all hated it because you're spending 90 hours a week for ever. I don't even want to look this game ever again because just no, just get it out of here. Came back to the game about maybe a year later, oh, this game is so beautiful. It's and then the expansions come out and everything like that. I've come back to Horn of the Abyss, which is such an incredible add-on for the game because it adds high definition and it adds so many features that I wish we would have had when we were making the game. Now you have this enormous, extra huge, it took a year to make a map. It's just so massive. And then all these other little features in the level editor that should have been in the original, different scenarios, different loose scenarios. It just added so much, and it's nice to see that even 22 years later, 21 years later, this game is still extraordinarily popular. You just don't see that. I remember seeing Diablo when it came out in '97. Amazing game. Diablo 2 came out a few years later. That game was on the shelf for 15 years. You could still buy Diablo 2. Wow, And Heroes 3 on the internet, it's still fresh now as it was the day it was released because people keep coming out with fresh content and add-ons and DLCs and things like this. I've never seen another game accomplish what Heroes 3 has accomplished. It's still just as, like I said, popular now as it was the day it came out. And I'm using the Horn of the Abyss level editor and creating a single map. I'm not done with it yet, but it's basically you're one of the heroes in the game. I'm using the lore of the game. Forgive me if I forget the names. So you're a hero. You've come back into your hometown. Your 2 sisters have been captured by Sandro because each of them hold an artifact that he needs to take over that entire map. Don't get to them in time, the sisters are going to die. Your father's going to be horribly sad. You lose, and it's happily never after. It's very sad. And so I've tried to develop characters for the twin sisters, the father, the actual main character, and Sandro himself. Sandro, you never actually see him in the game, but he plays a big part. The older sister is actually in a prison, and the younger sister is actually being held by Sandro's castle. And you have to capture. I'm trying to remember how it goes. So you're a barbarian. You have to free your sister from the prison, give everything to her. She has to go capture the younger sister. So because I set up some gates where a barbarian cannot pass through this gate. You have to be the hero. So you have to give everything to her. You have to build her up. Then you have to go to the Inferno Castle, to rescue your sister. And that's how you win. So there's a lot of mechanics in the background, a lot of balance that you have to do. And it's kind of breaking the system without breaking the system, because you look at the win scenario as every map gives you, it says one thing, but it actually changes. You're about 2 or 3 weeks in, suddenly there's a plot twist. And that's something I like to do in all the games where you have one expected ending. Oh, wait a minute, now I have to do this. And there's a series of monoliths that you have to go through in a certain order, and they're everywhere. So in this version of the map, Sandro's minions have a sense of humor, and it's most like a treasure hunt too. So you have to find all of these artifacts to put together I'm blanking on the name. When you put artifacts together, you come up with another artifact, master artifact was.
Yeah.
You have to get those, and then you have to take it to a certain place and rescue your sisters, and that's how you win the game. But I'm in the development stages now where I'm kind of walking through the game with 10,000 Archangels, just getting a balance of the game. And then when I'm done with that, I'll get rid of the angels and walk through just as a player for monster balance and play balance, and then I'll be releasing it. So
do you have like a mathematical formula or something that you use for balancing, to like get it a certain way, or do you just keep trying and trying and trying until you get it right?
I mean, you get to know the characters or the monsters pretty well. It's like you're not going to put a level 7 creature at the very beginning of the game.
Yeah.
You're going to get flattened right away. So level 1s, level 2s at the beginning, and as you expand out, you're going to see more complicated characters. If there's something like you have to face a level 6, and there's just you're in a corner, you have nothing else to do. You can either put an event, a customized event there that'll give you something, or you come up onto where you can recruit creatures that you need. You know what I mean? Or it's just all kinds of stuff you can do. So I test like the map in sections. So around the hometown, which in this case is what's it called? The desert one.
Oh, it's Stronghold, right?
Thank you, Stronghold. So I have a Stronghold, so I surround it with that. So some of the creatures will fight you. Some of them they'll just join you. Put some chests in there for experience and get yourself established at first. But as you go further out, you have to go to this over here to get this, and then to go over here so you can see more map, and then go check out this guy over here. You're kind of on a goose chase, but it's a kind of an organized goose chase. But in that as well, you test every section of the map for play balance, because you don't want to go to a certain spot and just, you're dead. You just confronted 5,000 bone dragons. Wait a minute, I'm on day 3. So it's something you do. And a lot of it is just kind of playing for a little bit. Okay, that was way much. Or on the other hand, there's 3 imps and that was nothing. You got to give it a little more challenging. There's one thing I wish, even to this day, that it had, is the ability to have the map editor on this side of the screen, actual game over here, editor here, and you can actually test it over here in real time.
Oh, yeah.
That's never there, and it still isn't, and it's probably impossible, but that would have been cool. It would have saved a lot of time.
Yeah, that would be incredible. Or maybe like a battle simulator or something as well, to just like try out different battles on different places with different artifacts and all that.
Exactly. So it's somewhat guesswork when you place your creatures. Is okay, I'm a 40 journey away from the castle, and at this point he should be around level 10 or 5 or whatever. You kind of got to take a guess at where you think they're going to be. So it's kind of a balance. You kind of got to guess, and that's kind of the beauty of it too. I don't mind doing that, and it just makes the game better. Something else to consider too is like you're putting in your timed events. You get your day 1, which is the introduction to the story, and then you have to time it just so to where if a timed event comes up and you're on a part of the map where that doesn't fit at all, maybe you should make that a bubble event instead of a timed event where he put on the map. Oh, okay. Because I've seen that before too. Well, your sister died, and she's like, whoa, 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 what? So it's a lot of massaging and moving things around and making sure that the map is kind of you can go anywhere you want on the map, but it's a linear story at the same time. So there's kind of a lot to it. Maybe I put too much thought into it, but at the end of the day, I tried to make a good, solid story that goes with a really good, balanced map.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that's very important as well. Like, as you say, that you have to time the timed events, of course, and that is a really hard thing to do, because everyone plays in a different way and like explores in different ways, and like some are more aggressive, just running to the enemy castle straight away, So you have to kind of work out some sort of a balance there where you can accommodate all types of players, and it's it's tough, but it's fun.
Correct, exactly right. Because you might go, it says to go this way, to get this whatever over here, this chest. I'm going to go this way. You just don't know how the player is going to play.
Yeah.
So you just kind of do your best to make sure that they will eventually hit that point, because it's a critical part of the story.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So there are different ways you can like force them to go this way and hit that little item. Because if you miss it, then you miss the whole point or something like that. So there's just ways of manipulating the map to kind of guide the player on this story.
Yeah. Yeah, and how would you go about with that? Would you like place decorations and like terrain to have you walk like through narrow passages, or would you?
Yeah, exactly. Like the map I'm working on now, I wish I could show you, but what I've done is, like, say there's a critical part in the story in the very beginning. You've got this monolith, and right next to it, you've got a chest, and then an exit of the like little valley that you're in. Okay, you eventually have to go out of the valley. You have to. So that's where I'm going to place my adventure point to give you a point of the story that you need, and you can't not go around it. Because if you like to get a little inside baseball here, if you go diagonally, you can pass it. You go that way. So you have to literally make a hallway of sorts that they have to hit it. So there's a lot of little things like that, and you just constructively and decorate it in such a way where it still looks good, but you're actually walking the character down a hallway.
Yeah.
So that they have to hit that point.
Yes. Oh yeah, yeah. I learned that the hard way. It's like when you because it's all like grid based, right?
Uh-huh.
And if you like, as you say, if you cross it diagonally, you can actually bypass the event, and it's like, oh wait, you were supposed to get killed there.
Exactly. You're supposed to get this item, and now you just walked right past it, and the rest of the game was like, what happened? So like in front of the castle or the stronghold that I'm doing now, I've basically put a decorative log on this side and another decorative log on this side. It looks nice, fine. And I put a lake on the left, so it looks really cool over there. But when you come up to the stronghold, you have to hit that little point. You have to. Because that's how you get to your castle and build your thing and all that thing. So, but yeah, little things like that make all the difference in the world. You can use if there's a customizable adventure item, is what it was called, use it, man. You can customize the text. You can do anything. There's so much versatility in this map editor that you could create an incredible story. And it takes time, but again, even with the expansions that the add-ons that came with Horn of the Abyss, there's so much more possibility to make such an amazing map or campaign.
Yeah. Yeah, I also love the fact that they managed to add new terrains as well. They have like a really like lush green one that I've been using a lot as well. It's like it makes the map kind of pop up.
And it's like you're painting. It's kind of like you're painting a picture.
Yeah.
Yes, you've got your snow, and then how are you going to put your snow right next to your lava and still make it look natural? You can use your dirt, you can use your grass, and there's all kinds of mountains and stuff you can use. This mountain has snow on the top, but it's got grass on the bottom. Just it's just you're literally painting a picture. Beautification that comes last in every map because that just takes your working, beautiful played map and makes it into an actual picture. That's what I always do last. Putting dead trees on top of lava or next to a mountain gives it that natural transition from the lava to the grass or the dirt. All kinds of little things you can do to just transition. Because if it's a hard snow then lava, I'm like, that doesn't work. How would that work? So you just use the mountains, the trees, the whatever you have in there to just kind of transition from one kind of land to another kind of land. It works really well. There's a guy, Dave, another level designer. I haven't talked to him since I worked on the game, but he was the master at making maps look. He made a great map. His maps were incredible, but he really shined. These maps are absolutely beautiful. They look amazing, and they played so well. But he just had that knack for really making the maps look outstanding. Really, really good stuff. And that's really part of the whole thing, because when you're looking at your map and you get bigger and you see more and you see more and you see more, it's like, that is a really beautiful thing. You know what I mean? It's really, really cool. So,
yeah, that's really important. Like, I try to sometimes like imagine that I am the actual hero. That I gotta walk through these like mountain passages and all that. Like, what kind of a feeling do you want the player and the and what sort of feelings do you want to give to the player and want the player to experience, sort of?
Exactly. Like, there's a part where in the map that I'm working on now where you see your father cry for the first time. And because he's this warrior, he's this big, strong, you've only seen him as this just fighting, incredible, just really incredible fighter, and then he breaks down.
Yeah.
And I want to play the map when it's ready. But in that part, I kind of made it a little more. There's an abandoned camp where it's just like it's just burned out, lots of dead trees, kind of just dirt. It's just kind of looking. This used to be a cool place. This used to be full of life and love and everything, and it's just what happened.
Oh my God.
Can you read that section of the cat?
Yep, there's a cat somewhere here.
I see the shadow. It's like this used to be full of life and all the stuff, and it's just really dirgy and burned out. Like, there was a fire here, something horrible happened here, and you get this part of the story, you're like, oh man, and you just continue on, and it kind of gracefully go back into the green or whatever it is. You just kind of use your environment to really drive home the emotion of where the story is.
Yeah.
So.
Yeah, that's lovely. It's like I did sort of the same thing, actually. Like in one of my my own maps, I also had like this burned down village, but there was still like a quest hut. Like one of those trees, sort of dead looking as well. It's like a I don't know how to better describe it. But anyways, so that's like the one survivor, from the village, where you kind of get the backstory to what happened to the village as well, and you kind of just walk through the ruins. So that's that's a really lovely thing to do.
It really is. You kind of work the scenery into the actual story. Like I kind of went out of my way this time to get a little bit more detailed on everything. Your father did his best to raise his family next to a beautiful lake in the scenario, and that's what the map is. You have a really nice map there. You got all this stuff kind of going on. You got your trees and your gold mine that's producing, and you got your gem mine that's producing. So you clearly have been there for a while, and you just work the scenery into the story, and it really kind of brings it to makes it a really, really good effort to make the story. The map is really.
I'm sorry.
Like you know what I mean? No, you're good. You're good. It works out well. I really like it because it's like like compared to Lord of the Rings. I mean, he did such an incredible job with that story, encompassing everything into telling such a solid story that you're literally pulled in. And that's kind of what I want to do with this map.
So I had a question as well. Like, how do you make the AI work the way that you intend it to work? Like, how do you make maybe, you know, like the enemy hero attacking a certain place, or like go a certain way, or whatever?
You know, and that's a good question. I'm glad you asked that question. Like, say you've got I'm actually looking at my map right now, the stronghold over here, and then you've got 4 other players here. You can't really control what they're going to do. So they kind of just wander the map and do their thing. Now, as far as I know, I've always known that you can't really control what they do. They're just going to wander the map and gather resources and attack monsters and, you know, build their towns. In some cases, like if you can go in, when we were developing, you were able to go in to see what the other towns were doing. Okay, it's like, you haven't built anything. What is happening? You just wandered around getting stuff randomly, like you're not doing what you're supposed to do. You know. So what you try to do is, like, say you want him to be a little stronger, you start the game with that enemy town built up a little bit. Give him a little bit of stuff. You know, give him some gold, give him some gems, give him some trees, give him these spells. You know, so he has something to work with. As in most of the time in my experience, if you just start everybody with nothing, they're just going to wander around. Yeah, they'll eventually build, and there'll come a point where, like, it just tips, and all of a sudden they have everything and they're super powerful, and you'd better be ready. You know, you've got to make it so again, it comes back to play balance. How long is it going to be before they come into your town and attack you? That's where play balance and testing comes in. Is it going to be a week? Is it going to be a month? Is it going to be ever? Because sometimes they don't. You know, they're fighting each other, you know. And another thing you can do is, if you really want to make the map more difficult, you put your enemy players on a team, and you put yourself on your own team. So they're all allied together coming for you. Okay? That is super difficult to play the game that way. You know what I mean? Because you've got all these dudes, they're all building up, they're all doing their thing. They have fully built towns. They're maxed out on their spells and their skills. And you're like, oh man, I've only got one town and a capital, and I'm left. Whoa. You know? It's difficult. Yeah. You know, so it comes back to play balance where you do that. I rarely put players on teams unless it's the humans that are on a team. Like, say, for example, you want to do a team-based map. Most of the time, I will put the human players on one team, and then have the computer players just kind of be free for all. So they're all fighting with each other, but they're also fighting with you. There's been a few cases in the original Heroes 3, I think is what it was. We had 2 versions of maps, single player version and the multiplayer version. And in some cases, we even did 3 versions of the map, where you've got your single player, you play the map, you have your dual player that's on teams against free-for-all, but then you'd also put the other computer players on a team as well. And that was the hardest setting.
Yeah.
So they're just...
like the allies one, I think they're called, or is it...
Computer players as an allied team,
yeah,
and so you have your human players as an allied team.
Oh, yeah, yeah.
And then another combination you can do is have your human players allied and your human players allied and your computers not allied. They're just kind of free-for-all on their own. So they're fighting each other just as much as they're fighting you.
Yeah.
That makes sense?
Yes, that makes a lot of sense. And it's, I think a lot of the good players also take advantage of that and, like, you know, let them kill each other, and then I go in when they're weak.
Exactly. So if you build up super quick, like with a stronghold, I've always liked the stronghold because you can have a level 7 creature first week. If you play it right, you can have a level 7 creature on the 6th day. Like, oh, cool. Awesome. Works really well, and then you just build up that way. So, like, a lot of people take the stance of, I'm going to build up my town and build up my resources and get all my stuff going that way. Well, you're taking that first week and a half, suddenly you've got an enemy at your front door. Is where another point is, I'm going to build up my creatures and build up as big of an army as possible, as quickly as possible. So when they do come, you're ready to fight off that first army. Then you build up your town. So there's just tons of different ways you can do it. So, and you just kind of guess which is going to happen and what you want the map to do. You know, you hold this super cherished artifact that the entire map wants. They're coming for you quick, and you'd better do something right now, otherwise you're gonna. That's something like there's a win scenario where you can set a timer, survive for this many days. What I like to do is take an artifact, and you have to deliver it from point A to point B, survive within this many days. So you have 45 days or 90 days or whatever the case may be to deliver the artifact. If you don't, you lose. So it's kind of a escort the prisoner type situation. So that's kind of what I'm doing in this new map here is you have to go build up your town, build up your army, free someone from prison, send that person to free the other person.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, the transport artifact. Yeah, because that's a winning scenario, right? Where you put like a transport of specific artifact to a specific town or something, right? Man, I should really know this.
Sorry, transport a specific artifact, which I'm looking at it right now.
Yep.
There's several win conditions. Transport a specific artifact is the one I'm using. I have to take the armor of the damned to the Inferno. But to get that armor of the damned, it's a treasure hunt. There's a lot to do. So, not impossible, but you have to do all this crazy zany stuff to get that. And then you have to give it to another hero who can't die either. And then you take it over there. So you're actually having to manage two different heroes that can't die. And you have to put together this artifact from a bunch of other artifacts you have to find. You take it over to town.
Yeah.
And then you win. So.
And that's a really fun way as well to work together with the map editor to actually create these unique scenarios, because you can always put like time limits on like certain quests that you maybe need to get to go to the next level, so to speak. So you need a specific artifact, and you go to a quest card that requires that artifact, and you put time limits on all those as well. Yeah, that's really interesting.
Yeah, with the quest cards, like one of the things you have to get for the armor of the damned, you have to go quite a lot to get it. But when you bring back that artifact to get the one you need, you get a huge reward. I reward the player very well, 50,000 gold or some crazy thing, and all the experience. And so you're not just getting that artifact; you're getting a bunch of other stuff with it, because it does two things. It tells the player, number one, cool, I got rewarded really well. And oh crap, is it going to get that much harder? Yes, it is. But you have to reward the player what they need, but also a little extra to make the game more fun. So you got 50,000 gold for getting that, and it just takes you that much further so you can build your town. It's a lot of give and take, to be honest with you. Sometimes you'll hit an adventure item and suddenly do not pass go, do not collect $200, go direct to the jail. Like, dang, why? But keep going, you build, you move around, you fight creatures, and then you get a reward back. So it's kind of depending on how the story goes. But if you're taking stuff away from the gamer, but also rewarding them for their efforts, it makes the game that much more playable. Something else, it really is. Something else what I do is on this map, every single resource is random. I have no place resources. There's no gems, there's no gold. It's all random. Okay, and on the monster dwellings, all of them are random. And to me, with the story that works, it works. Okay, now because I do that, let's play it again. This time it's going to be entirely different because everything is different. Where all those gold gems were, it's now, wood and crystals and mercury. Like, well, I don't need that. I need this. You say, I did now. You know, and there's been some maps. I think it was in the second expansion. Behind the scenes, we called the game "The Shadow of the Gut." I know that's not what it's called because because the cover drawing was this huge fat guy. I don't know. It was a warrior, or no, a warrior. It was a, what was it? Anyway, he had a huge gut, so we called it was called the Shadow of Death. We called it the Shadow of the Gut. And, I forgot what I was going. Oh yeah, in that, man, there's a single map that I built in there called Heroes of Might, Not Magic.
Oh yes, yes.
No magic in the game. It's only skills and only no spells. So you have your armies and your skills, and you have to win the map that way. Now, what was funny about that, I'm going to go off a tangent a little bit here. At the time, you could not build a map without any magic. The editor just wouldn't let you do it. Like, all right, fine. So I turned the story into, look, there's this town that has captured all of the magic in the entire land. Your job is to overthrow that town, to free all the magic to the rest of the land, and then you win the game. So you just work around the editor to make that happen. So you open up with your town, you have everything except the magic. Or even if you build your mage towers, nothing's available. So you have to build it to build up your town, but you get no benefit. So what you ended up having to do is travel the map and kill everybody and go down to catch this, to overthrow this town, and then all the magic is released again. So just several different ways of using the map's editor's limitations to your advantage.
Yeah. And also that name, Heroes of Might, Not Magic, it's like one of the catchiest ones, because that's like one of the first ones I remember remembering. Yeah, so
exactly.
It's a really, really well done job on that as well.
Thank you. So I tried to just add little quirky things. You know what I mean? It literally was a non-fantasy fan jumping into making games for fantasy fans.
Yeah.
So little quirky little things like that, dropping in this is back when Y2K was a big thing. So there's another map where I put in a whole story about Y1K, not what. That's in the secret campaign. You'll have to play it, but it's just all the stuff that isn't Y1K compliant. I made references to the Wizard of Oz. I mean, just you make different references to different things that are in today's world, but it's in the heroes world.
Yeah.
It worked out really well. So,
did you like make them when we were going to make a new map? Did you like begin with like drawing something up on a paper as well, or did you just go with, like you said before, with the random map generator?
Well, and what I would do, because when you just generate a map the way I did it, all I'm doing literally, it's just the terrain. Okay, just the terrain, nothing else. So I like that layout. I like that it has a snow up here and you get a little bit of dirt here, and but I mean, at first, when you design a map, you've got to have an idea of beginning, middle, end. Okay, and like I covered earlier, it's a case of what is the story? Why are you here? Why are you fighting all these creatures? Why are you defending your hometown? Why do you have to capture the enemy? Why do you have to defeat all of these towns? So you make a storyline on paper, come up with that first. And then you can go to your map and design, all right, so this is what's happening in the story. So who are you fighting determines what kind of terrain you're going to have, what kind of landscape you're going to have. So you can take your story and kind of deliver it over to the actual map itself. Of course, you got your dungeon. Okay, that might be a 2-layer map because a dungeon's underground, or you've got your rampart town, lots of green, lots of grass, lots of elves and things like that. Those aren't necessarily going to be underground, obviously, unless they're possessed or something. But Uh, but yeah, you kind of write the short version of your story kind of in bullet point form, like who, what, where, why, when, and how. If you answer all of those questions, you're going to have a decent map. Because when you read a story, who, what, where, why, when, and how. In every story, you're going to get those questions answered. If you're not answering all of those questions, then you're missing something in your story. So, and then, I'm told that there are really, when you get down to it, only 7 plots to any story. Okay, 7 plots. So you have that to choose from. There are also different things like, this map, escort the president. Okay, or capture this thing, or do a treasure hunt. Well, I mean, there's just different things you can do. Write all that down on paper, and then massage it there to what you actually want. So it's kind of a one sheet spreadsheet style, if you will, of what's happening. From then what I did from that point is go to the random map generator and just generate terrain only. And if I like that kid, I like the way that looks, and do some adjustments and stuff. Okay, I'm going to place my town here because it's a rampart town, most likely to be in the snow or whatever the case may be. It's going to be in the dirt, and it's over here because in the story, you've lived on the west side your whole life. You kind of try to build a history, a very short history as to why you're even here in the first place. Something that bothered me about some maps is fight the creatures. Why? And I've seen entire video games. It's just, you have to kill the creatures. You have to win the battle. The battle of what? Why are we fighting? What's happening? What do we get out of this? And win. Okay. And there's no reason for it. There's no meat. There's no potatoes. There's no, why are we here? So who, what, where, why, when, and how have to be answered in every map.
Yeah, that's really interesting. So, you said that you were not into fantasy, but you were going to write for fantasy fans. But what experience did you have with writing overall? Or was it like you started from nothing at all?
Okay, I came from a post-nuclear. That's my favorite genre. Wasteland, Fallout, those games. I love near future, post-nuclear, that genre. Okay, 10 years from now, there's going to be a nuclear blast. What happens in that world? That's just a genre that I absolutely love. So, kind of, in a sense, a bit of a fantasy, but obviously, real world, post-nuclear is nothing to do with fantasy. But the similar storylines can still happen. You still have to escort the president. You still have to do these things. You still have to do these quests. You still have to go over here and grab that person and bring them back so that you can collaborate and to finish this task over here, this quest. So it's just a little bit of adjusting how the story is told. Mainly, in my experience, it's just the language that you use. You're not going to say 10-4 in a fantasy book or a fantasy story as you would, make it. You're using different language. That's the big thing that I had to adjust to, is using language that they would more likely use in a fantasy book or a fantasy game, as opposed to a post-nuclear role-playing game. So I'm not a writer. I'm not. I don't write stories. I don't write books. But it's something I kind of like doing, and, I try really hard to pay attention to detail, flow, how the story flows, and doing that, and then combining it with making a great map. You can write good enough or well enough to make a good kind of a short story for a map. And that's really where I excel. If you ask me to write a book on fantasy, forget it. There's no way I can do it. Tim Lang, he's been a writer his whole life. I remember some of the books we wrote together as kids, these short stories, they're awful. Yeah, he'll tell you the same thing. Well, he went on to write a post-nuclear story And he sells it on Amazon. It's a great story, man. It's like, this is really good, well-written story. Nuclear bomb in Los Angeles is basically the premise of the story. And, the son of a politician, he goes on and on. The book is called Souled, Souled, recommended. It's a good read. I really actually enjoyed it, but it's taking that ability to just create a short story and a little bit of the character development and a reason. That's really what it comes down to. Like I said at the very beginning, why am I going in this direction? Why am I going to that tree over there? Why am I having to capture that town? Why am I having to come back and capture all of these resources? And why am I building the resources? Okay. And as you play the game, those questions are being answered. You have to get resources to build your town. There, easy. Okay. You have to build your armies to protect your town or yourself. When you go out and about, adventuring the land, you have to have an army with you to protect you. Little things like that. But there's also the storyline where I have to deliver this certain thing or this certain creature to this certain part of the map to unlock this other section of the map, or to get a resource so I can go over here and visit that town over there, or this thing to get this reward. It's mainly it's almost like a random treasure hunt almost every time. So, and in building the maps, we had to not build the same map every time, which I found myself doing some of the time. Like, okay, wood, crystals, and gems. Every map, I go, no. Change. Too easy. So you have to build maps in such a different way as not to have the same map over and over again, but also give the player a different experience every single time.
Yeah, and that's also something that you can do a lot with terrain and all that. I mean, just placing a town in a certain part of a map, you can still have so many different outcomes just by managing the terrain in a different way.
Right.
I mean, it's a classic one, I think. You make the map and then you just put the town in the upper corner and another town in the lower corner, and it's like, yeah, I've seen it too many times now.
Yeah, it's a very boxy looking thing. You got one player, 3 player, 4 player, and then okay, that's cool. If you're doing multiplayer, that's actually cool. It's a very basic, go get them, kill each other. That's a great map layout. But if you're telling a story, it's terrible.